Welcome to the front porch of Barrington's White House. I'm Jack Schaefer with the Barrington Cultural Commission, and we're here today to listen to 10 area poets read their original works inside the Barrington's White House. The theme that we've given them for inspiration is the word emerging, and they've taken this theme and done some amazing things with it. Come in with me and let's listen to their poems.
My name is Max, and this poem is called The Wall. Inside America's houses, big and small, little children wait patiently for the day when all the people bring down this social wall. In this quiet time, some have begun to crawl and walk. Their laughter is never far away, inside America's houses, big and small. I too await the end of this protocol, that children may again have places to play, when all the people bring down this social wall. Yet there are some here who have no walls at all behind which to play, because they do not stay inside America's houses big and small. So do not ignore them or mock their long call. Do not stray or deny or further delay when all the people bring down this social wall. And one fine day, I might find a pen to scrawl, words that I never imagined I could say. Inside America's houses, big and small, all the people have brought down this social wall. I was inspired to write this poem by something I saw. I walk past St. Anne's Church every day on the way to work, and I saw kids just playing around in the parking lot. I think it was during their PE time or something like that. And everybody had their own parking space that they had to stay in, and they're all wearing masks, and it was just such a strange sight to me, and it got me thinking about the effect that the pandemic has had on kids everywhere, really. And so that was it started about just trying to empathize with, the situation that the kids are in, and then the poem really took on a life of its own from there. Poetry is important to me because I think it's a door to a lot of different emotions and experiences that you can have. What I mean by that is, some poems can make you feel sad, some poems can make you feel inspired, some poems can kind of bring you on a visual experience where you're imagining yourself in them, almost like a movie. So in that sense, I think poetry is really flexible as a form of communication, and it's very accessible too. You don't have to have fancy gear to go do it. You don't need, supplies. You just need experiences and thoughts and, some tools, some literary tools behind you maybe. But really you just need kind of a passion to do it. And I think that the accessibility of poetry is something that has made it such a long-lasting form of communication, form of art.
Hi, my name is Sin Salach. I live in Chicago with my son Leo, and this poem is called Alzheimer's, and it's from my dad. In the fairy tale the storyteller told, the queen loses her husband to a spell that turns him into a giant lizard after dusk. Every night he retreats to a tower, not wanting to be seen. To break the spell, the queen must wear out 12 pairs of iron shoes, along with a couple of other impossible things. But she does them all. With grief and perseverance, she does them all. The storyteller then asks us to tell her the tale backwards. Happily ever after to once upon a time. It's challenging, but not nearly as challenging as it would be to wear out 12 pairs of iron shoes, and there are 8 of us to help each other out. We fill each other's memory in, eventually recalling all of the small details that live in between all of the big ones. At first, I'm frustrated that I can't remember every single detail by myself. Then, I'm elated that I don't have to remember every single detail by myself. Since then, I've stayed with elated like a new truth, a part of my heart unlocking like a spell being broken. I don't have to become a giant lizard and disappear when my memory gets dusky. I simply have to find a circle of women who all heard the story and ask them to say it out loud with me until we reach the beginning once more. What inspired me to write this poem, I think, is similar to what inspires me to write any poem, which is when parts of my life line up in an unignorable way. I had this experience in a group with a storyteller many years before my father was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. But I was so moved by how these women, how we all eventually were able to tell the entire story, but that it did take 8 of us to remember every detail and go from the end to the beginning. And I do remember being surprised at how much I didn't remember. This was probably about 10 years ago. And that experience was so powerful, it just lived in my heart. And then when my father was diagnosed about 5 years ago, I started writing about it. And this story of this memory, this experience that I had of my own challenge to my memory, of what it took for me to remember an entire thing and all the details, just came rising up in my heart. And I began working with BACOA, with the Adult Day Out program, and writing poems with the participants of the program. And poetry just helped us all tell the story. We told the story in a group. And so it just came together with my experience in the storytellers group. And this poem came out. It just fell out on the page. So in some ways, I feel like I can't even take credit for it. It sort of just wrote itself by being alive in me. Why is poetry important? There are probably a million answers to that. It's an important question. Poetry isn't just important. It's important for us to ask that question so that we keep looking for it every day. We keep listening for it every day. I'm recording this during National Poetry Month, and I just learned recently that that was created to help people be aware of their own answers to this question. Poetry helps us hear a certain kind of truth that we wouldn't hear otherwise. There's a poet, William Carlos Williams, who said that it is difficult to get the news from poetry. It is difficult to get the news from poems, but men die every day for lack of what is found there. And it took me a long time to really understand what that meant, but it's what feeds our heart. It's what reminds us what's good. It helps us hear hope, even in grief, even in challenging things. Poetry helps us hear the beauty of our human experience on this planet at this time in our lives. And it never fails to ground me and help me sit up a little straighter and help me feel softer toward myself and richer, like literally richer, that I am blessed, that there are gifts all around me. Poetry helps me see that. So I think it's pretty important.
Hi, I'm Tamara Tabell, and I live in Barrington, a longtime poet and member of Barrington Writers Workshop. So this is my poem called The Monster Came Within Us. The monster came within us. We huddled in our dark caves, wrapped in thick blankets, cowered from the clap of footsteps on the sidewalk, the thud of a stranger's knock upon our door, the very breath of those we loved. Who was friend? Who was foe? Who hid the monster within their lungs? Our skin ached for touch, the pull of our mother's arm around us, the fingertips of a lover, dawdling, teasing, the brush of a friend's hand as we throw our heads back in laughter, perhaps even the graze of a stranger's arm. We now emerge, blink in the unfiltered light, outstretch our arms to catch the warmth, roll the soft casing of a budding magnolia between finger and thumb, awaiting its arching white blossoms, its citrus scent. Lift our eyes to the bird in flight, a speck of red against the blue. Listen with hopeful yearning to the cardinal's fervent mating cry, its cry, its cry. As we breathe the cool spring air, take it deep and hold before release. So fragile is breath, is birth, is life, that we may never take it for granted again. So I would have to say that my biggest influence was an Illinois poet named Gene Kimmett. He was originally from Lima, Ohio, and he was a member of the Barrington Writers Workshop, an amazing, amazing poet who often wrote things about Lima, Ohio and his life. And he taught me a lot. He studied with Gregory Orr and with Lucian Strike, and he taught me a lot about structure and narrative and poetry and just getting that second level of meaning. So he unfortunately passed away in February, and I just wanted to give a shout out just to thank him again for everything that he did for me. I think poetry is important because it's kind of the inner voice of people. It's kind of sharing your secrets, and I think a poem really resonates when there's something in it that speaks to you that maybe you thought in your mind, or maybe you never even realized you had that thought, and now it's on paper. I think also poetry is the voice of the people, and whether that's poetry in protest, whether that's poetry to a person in love, it's really showing the human side of us and exploring that on paper and sharing really the most intimate thoughts of someone with the world.
My name is Harleen Henry Perazzi, and I'm going to read my poem, Phase 5. When I was a child, everything was done for me. Everything was planned. I was content. When I was a teenager, I tested myself and was tested by others. I matured, succeeded, failed, and found my feet. When I was a younger woman, I relished love, friendship, independence, survived a troika tragedy of grief, mourning, revival. Now I'm older. No clue what is coming, how soon, how late, how long. Nothing done for me. Nothing planned, not content. In this, my final phase, I strive to soothe my disquiet of the unknown, embrace the ultimate mystery. Now comes the fun part. I suppose I started writing poetry as an infant because my mother and I played word games from, I think, the moment I was born. We would sing songs to each other that we created ourselves. I went on to write lyrics for songs, and then eventually into writing haiku for about 8 years. And now I'm writing more lyric poems. To me, it's word painting. It enables the reader to actually get a vision of what it is you're trying to express. It could be ephemeral, it could be physical, it could be spiritual, but I believe it adds dimension to people's lives. And I know so many people who carry around a little phrase by this poet or that poet all their lives, and it acts as a North Star for them.
Hello, I'm Dr. Sharon Kassane, and I'm here to read my poem, Time to Rejoice. The Easter lily trumpets a new day. Your inner child beckons, come out and play. Dare to believe in the magic of spring. Despite the skeptics, there is such a thing. New growth brings with it a bright new hope. No time to sit around and mope. Let's emerge from winter's confining shell. Wake up, inhale spring's refreshing smell. Morning dew, brisk air, clover and mint, signs of better things to come, a hint. Spring cleaning is a worthy enough goal. Worthier still is cleaning of the soul. My Aunt Florence, who collected all my poems and saved them, and always encouraged me. I was naturally, I guess, a poet. I didn't know it. And in high school, one time, I wasn't really a studious student, even though I got excellent grades. So we had this Sister Mary Anselm, and she was a marvelous mind. I went to a private school, Notre Dame High School, and one day she called our gifted class out. She said, I want the following students to come out in the hallway, and you will write a poem. And she assigned us a theme. So I had friends, of course, and all I did was talk. And about a few minutes, one of the girls said, Sharon, we only have 5 minutes to write the poem. I thought, oh my goodness, so I better start writing. Well, we went back in the class, and Sister Anselm was busy taking her time reading them. She said, we have one outstanding poem today, and it is by Sharon. And all the girls had to suppress their laugh because I put the least amount of effort in it. But I think that kind of recognition did help me. And the school was always so, I mean, they weren't kind to be kind. They were very strict. But when you got praise from them, it really counted. Well, poetry is the mirror of one's soul, especially in these days. It is getting frightening to express yourself in many ways. At least poetry, you can take a pseudonym if you want, but you can communicate to people in a kind, peaceful way, and I think it raises everybody's level of awareness.
Hello, my name is Trudy Kleckner, and I'm going to share 2 poems with you this evening. The first is called Endless. Behold, tiny leaves of springtime, uncurling from tight buds, tender, lifting eager faces to sunlight, perfect replicas of last year and tomorrow. Joyous harbingers announce life goes on. Though storms rage, fires burn, rivers flood, buildings fall, life goes on. Spring returns, life renews. The next poem I'm going to read is called Wonderment, and it's about one of my favorite people in the world. She is standing up. A look of astonishment lights flower face. Eyes sparkle, soft round cheeks, slight grin. Chubby fingers grip brown leather hassock. Just behind her hover 2 strong dad hands. One day, those fingers may reach for stars, explore oceans, plant seeds. Her feet may run races, walk for miles, execute intricate dance steps. But today she is standing up. Mary Oliver has always been my favorite poet. Like Mary, I spend a lot of time walking around observing nature. I'm not putting myself in the same class. I never hope to get anywhere near her excellence, but she's really taught me to look at nature and to express it on paper. This poem was inspired by a picture of my great-granddaughter standing up for the first time I have the privilege of watching her grow up via text pictures, and it's just a real thrill. I think poetry is important because it helps people to express and share their feelings on a whole variety of topics. When you begin to write a poem, you really have to think more about what it is you're saying. And if you do it well, you touch people's lives in a positive way.
My name is Ed Schwartz. I've lived in Lake Barrington Shores for 25 years. I am a poet who has fallen in love with an artist named Mary. We are both in our mid-80s and life has begun again. My poem is called Hand to Hand. You had no say when Mom and Dad brought you screaming into the world. There was no sudden flash of light as your own little world unfurled. You had no say, but as you grew, your time would come to make your mark. That is, my boy, if you really knew that life would never be a lark. Your parents signed their wedding vows. Soon you clung to your father's finger. The other hand had a wedding band, as a father's pride does linger. We sign on now that we will love our wives, our children, our sacred vows, until the end when we rise above, then sealed with the slightest bow. My father's touch was rough and hard, my mother's soft as a dove. Father taught me how to work, mother taught me how to love. The differences between the two were miles apart, but similar. The harder hand taught manly ways, the softer, more familiar. The first time Father shook my hand, he said, "You got it right in one," was the day I felt my bargain made between a father and a son. He stood there like an old oak tree, and I a seedling in his shade. My sister's hands I barely knew. From birth to death, her days were few. "Welcome to my class." The man was tall. He crushed my hand, and I felt small. "That's not a shake of hands," he said. "Grasp my hand and squeeze it tight. The mark of a bargain, I'll teach you to write." I thought of my Gramps dying in bed. He took my hands, live in my stead, and never lose sight of your promises, Ed. Bumped into a girl I knew in school, knocked over her books, felt like a fool. Got down to help her, discovered her hand, found I was touching a brand new land. Holding hands, innocent the first time you feel, it holds within a promise that time will reveal. No shaking of hands, this feeling was real. Young as we were, we tried to conceal. Shake hands with your boss and the office crew. A bargain inferred you do what you do. You signed on the line, the bills coming due. A house and a wife and a baby, no clue. Still the bargain applies, you and your ways. Do the best that you can for the rest of your days. Your baby will soon grab your thumb up so tight, welding your hearts together for life. Decades have passed, your children are grown. They made their own bargains, their families they own. Your mate has departed and you're all alone. 85 is old, how much more can there be? 2 months go by and you seek history. You talk to old friends of arthritis and plans. You want something more, but what is the use? You need someone to reach out a hand. But life is resilient. I met someone who I could talk to of music and books that we knew. She was an artist and I liked to write. We talked and we talked for hours, how grand. Then one day I said, "Mary, are we too old to hold hands?" She reached for my hand, put both around mine, said, "I wanted you to say that for a long, long time." Our hands now are clasped for as long as we can. And I say to you all, you are never too old to hold hands. Well, as I said in the beginning, my wife of 60 years, we were married, passed away about a year ago. And Mary's husband passed away about 10 years ago. The couples, we both knew each other very well. And when he died, why, we kept in touch. I borrowed books from her, and we had talks on the phone every once in a while. After my wife passed away, we decided to get together, and more than that, we fell in love. And at 85, that's a pretty good job. Enjoying it very, very much. And the poem was written mostly because of that, but it really had to do with the hands business. When I say, can I hold your hand? To us, that is the beginning of everything that happened to us. And so I thought of that as hand to hand, and then hands, how they were handled throughout the ages from youth until this time. Poetry is important, I think, because it takes a very few words to make a very big idea. And it's just a way of saying things that is, it's not easy, but it's a way of saying things and making them beautiful using as few words as possible.
Hello, my name is Mia Rao. I am a 5th grader at Grove Avenue Elementary School, and today I will be presenting to you an original poem. Change. Change comes, change goes. But it's always different when people are involved. It sends some down a tempting road. Go down the wrong path, and you could end up in a twisted world. Another dimension, another universe. But pick the right one, and there's always a chance of collapsing. With others always trying to bring you down, take your crown away. But change isn't as simple as rights and wrongs. Change brings tornadoes, storms, and hurricanes. Emotions around you swirling in every which way. With people flowing in and out of your life, some venturing too far into your mind and getting swept in. Some leaning farther out, away from you, the disaster. A whirlwind of feelings, you with no apparent shades. No idea of where there's an ending or beginning, or even of which side you should take. Change can wreck your whole structure and drown it in a lake. But you have to have the courage to get up and move on, and to face the calamities head on. Brush the dust off and find some new tactics. Differences in lifestyle don't have to be a battle. You can put down your sword and show peace and love, even to the people who push you into this mayhem of a world. Find your own comforting place to dwell in, but don't ignore the event. Embrace the difference and figure out a way to get it together. This is your time to shine, so run with it. Change comes, yet it takes a while for change to really go away. But don't fight it. Instead, turn on the light. Let its witty words of wisdom engulf you. Let them teach you, help you figure out what this change means. Let them enlighten you so that you have the knowledge. Change is only a rocky route if you make it that way. So stay. Take a chance to say, I'm listening. My extended reading teacher, Mr. Winsack, always encouraged me to write poetry and other forms of writing that help me express who I am. But he also always told me that a writer's work is never done, which is a great piece of advice because it push me to work harder as a writer and keep improving my writing. And I hope I continue to do this until I am much older. I think poetry is important because it is the form of self-expression that I've chosen to use throughout the time I've been writing poetry. It's also stood the test of time. People have been writing poetry for centuries now, and yet here we are in 2021 now, still writing poetry, yet in a more modern way, which I think is amazing.
Hi, I'm Len Vraniak from Tower Lakes. My poem is called Love Breaks Through. Life as we knew it, hidden from view, stripped to its essence. But what can we do? Day by day, time slowly creeps. We struggle to find what gives our heart leaps. Told to be grateful, told to be glad. But what about angry, or weepy, or sad? News of the world is a spike to the brain. Yet it keeps coming, a runaway train. While in the depths, in the heart of despair, comes a loud sound, makes us turn to stare. Bellyful laughter, word oddly wrought, reminds us to look for the joy we have sought. Add each one up, and the sum seems not much, until you account for the hearts that you touch. Some are big gestures and some are real small. Size isn't important when it breaks down the wall. That's the equation we all need to make to focus on love, or our hearts may just break. So thank you, my loves, for all that you bring. It cuts through the mess, it lessens the sting. I wrote this poem in the middle of the pandemic as a reminder for people to look around them and see, acknowledge, and take joy in the things that are right in front of them, even in the midst of the craziness. Oh, that's a great question. Poetry, I think it's important because we need people to tell our stories, and poetry allows us to do that in concise and really interesting ways.
In my city of dreams, old Vienna, we're told the Schnitzel served hot and the beer is pulled cold. While down on the corner, the stand that serves Wurzel has a brat that's so good your tummy might burstle. But late every night, when the Turm chants out tune, the old Wurstel man knows his long day is through. He cleans off the grill, mops the floor, downs the light, climbs up on his moped, and puts off in the night. The scene is at rest. The Strasse is black. Not an auto, no Straßenbahn runs on the track. The stand may seem empty from one point of view. There are no Leute there eating, it's true. Yet, not all is quiet in the stand, for quite soon one hears wiggles and giggles by the light of the moon. And we quickly discover, to surprise and delight, that the lovely old Wurststands a Deutsche Festzeit. The leftover brats that weren't bought in the day jump out of their tupper box to sing, dance, and play. And oh, if you knew of the grand jollity, their twisting and worsting is so great to see. The beer in the bottles blow bubbles so fine that it tickles the necks of the Liebfraumilchwein. The slices of Roggenbrot, still sitting since noon, dance the beer barrel polka with Käse und Spoon. The Brettchen and pretzels in a romp without cease climb up and jump down from the big pot of grease. The empty pop bottles all stand out to go, pop out of their cases and clink in a row. And that big metal jar with a long silver spout snakes a long line of sharp vesta round and about. But none have more pride than the leftover brats, toasting comrades now eaten, praising those who were not. Das Singen und Tanzen und freundlich Delight is a rousing expression of Gemütlichkeit. If the old Wustermann in his bed fast asleep could but know of the frolic his sharp Tantens keep. Then, when soft daylight peaks in the Österreich sky, the brats and the bottles of beer say goodbye. They climb up on the racks, up on the shelves, then go to sleep happy, just pleased with themselves.
I have been very fortunate to travel a great deal, and I happen to be performing in Vienna. And on the way back from rehearsals, on my way back to my apartment, there was a Deutsche Wurststand. And I'll tell you something, after rehearsal, there aren't that many places left open at 10, 11, or 12 o'clock at night. And these places would stay back often until 2 o'clock. So it was always, not that I'm saying it's a good thing to eat a sausage before you go to sleep, but you know what? It was the best thing we had. And I fell in love with these sausage shops. McDonald's, eat your heart out. There's nothing quite like a great Vienna sausage with a piece of bread, a bottle of beer, a little mustard. It's the best. Poetry, I think, is an attempt to describe the indescribable. We need to be able to express to the very best of our ability things that are so very, very dear and important to us. Music can do it. Without the music and you only have the words, well then you're basically required to delve into rhyme, meter, and various outlets that somehow or other can give the listener, as well as the person writing, the sense that he is accomplishing, saying something that has such incredible depth and meaning. I don't know how you can compare a Shakespeare sonnet to anything other than magnificence. It's a gift. If a person can do this, it's great. And if there are those who are willing to listen, that's even greater.